This is Dragonfire, a failed roller coaster by the renowned manufacturer Aerodynamics. This coaster was the first that Aero designed fully on computers. Unfortunately, the ride's designer, Ron Toomer, used many of his old design methods, which led to a rough and uncomfortable ride. So today, I will be building a model of Dragonfire out of Connects to honor its troubling legacy. Dragonfire starts with a 150-foot tall lift hill, which I was able to start building with some tube supports. For this build, I don't want to have a larger base for the whole coaster, so I'll mostly have it for the big supports. Something else I'll be doing is using smaller 3-rod tube supports to help scale the coaster better. Then I added the chain and built all the way up until right before the first element after the lift. One of the innovative things that Aero did was make all the inversions unique to Dragonfire. The first one comes right after the lift, and is a wraparound corkscrew into the first drop. Turns out I didn't record any of the corkscrew, so here's some close-up shots of the finished drop. These supports with 3 tubes going up are some of my favorite that I've ever built. I used an extra spine for the corkscrew at the top, for some extra strength and to keep everything smooth. Okay, so I've kind of locked in building for a little bit. So I finished the airtime hill and the turn. I've kind of switched between using the normal ones and the 3-rod tube supports. I think using the smaller ones just fits the scale of micro better. So I think using like a mixture of both is the way to go. Next up is the Cobra roll. I started with the base and got out my spinal track. I have the rest of my normal spinal track elsewhere for something coming soon, so I'll have to make my flexi rod track work. How I built the Cobra roll is quite simple. I started with adding in some track and small supports. I made sure to add lots of tiny attachments from the supports to the track. I then grabbed some extra flexies for extra reinforcement. You can see here how strong this is. For the last part of the support, I added in the cross braces behind the track. Instead of building forward, I replicated the support on the other side and then added in spinal track as a guide for the middle supports. This one here is one of my favorites of the whole coaster. I then smoothed everything out with the extra 2 flexi rods and completed the Cobra roll with the final 2 supports. The next element is a simple turn into the midcourse brake run. In the POV, you can see this terrible transition, and I tried to replicate it. It's not as bad as the real one, but it's still pretty bad. For the brake run, I used one section of box supports, just like the real thing, and also added a catwalk. Before we continue, I want to mention that this next part is not in a lot of photos of the coaster. Originally, Dragonfire had a 6th inversion, that being the diving corkscrew after the midcourse. This was removed after the 1994 season to try and make the coaster smoother. Anyway, I will be bringing this element back because it's just cool and there's no real people that can ride my models anyway, unfortunately. At this point, I ran out of orange connectors and had to start using brown ones. I have an insane amount of these, which just goes to show how many supports Dragonfire has. Anyway, I started building the cutback with building the base, and overall, the cutback wasn't hard to build. It was just some tube supports and some track. So I'm in the process of planning out the final Helix and station and whatever, and I've run into a problem. I need a little bit more room for the corkscrew here, and I think what I'm going to do is add an extra piece of track on the midcourse brake run. I think already it's a bit too short, so I think adding that will make it a little bit more realistic and it will give me more room for the corkscrew and then hopefully room to get the Helix in, which is going to be a challenge because for one thing I didn't really notice, but as it's exiting it kind of goes into the ground a little bit, which obviously I can't do. But I do have the base, so I'm going to have to go into the base a little bit and have to make it work its way around and through this, which is going to be very fun. It's going to be a challenge. So I extended the brake run with an extra piece of track and support. I then built the final corkscrew with the same steps as all the others. Make a guide with the spinal track, add supports, add track, and finally add the extra reinforcement flexies. Okay, so now what I need to do is build the Helix around here, But I think I'm gonna try and add another piece of track there to add a little bit more distance here. Hopefully at least another red rod. That allows me to have the track here where the station will be. Okay, so it's actually pretty easy to add in a piece of track. Now I just need to fix a whole bunch of supports and build a new base, which is not gonna be fun.
Turns out it wasn't that hard of a fix. I added a couple new supports to the base of the drop to account for the extra piece of track and then started on the Helix. I moved the Midcourse out of the way for easier access under the Cobra roll, and with some struggle I managed to build the Helix.
Alright, so I finished the coaster, I finished the Helix, and then the little turnaround to where the station would be. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it looks really good. I'm glad I was able to do it with the green spinal track. I was kind of worried that I wasn't going to have enough, but I managed to find enough. And I thought I wasn't going to like how this looked with the two extra flexi rods, but I think it actually looks pretty good, and it doesn't actually like take away from like the green. I was expecting the red connectors to stand out a lot more than they actually do, which is nice.
And there you have it, my Kinect's recreation of Drachen Fire. Now, before I show you the final results, if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing and giving the video a like. If you want more information on Dragonfire, I have video links in the description. Now, enjoy the final result.